As certified life coaches with 45 years combined experience in human resources, Jen Trum and Katherine Fry have both experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, both personally and professionally. What they both know to be true is this: our mental, physical, and emotional health are the essential building blocks in order to thrive and shine in the field of HR. In a first of its kind podcast, we'll be getting real and we'll discuss and share what has contributed to both our success and
Oh my goodness, well, what an intro that was. I'm so sorry, Kathy, that got cut off there. But in a first of its kind podcast, we are Kathy Fry and Jen Trum. Welcome everybody to episode. Welcome one and all to Thrive and Shine HR. We are your hosts, Jen Trum and Kathy Fry. So sorry about that. I've been having these interesting technical issues with the starting of the podcast for a few weeks now. I think it's time for me to maybe look into that. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to our 22nd episode. This episode is entitled Uncertainty is the Only Certainty: Why Getting Comfortable with Uncertainty is Essential for Successful Leaders and How to Do It. Kathy, how are you doing? How's life treating you? What is going just well for you right now?
There's so much that's going so well for me. I just have to pause and keep giggling a little bit because we're talking about uncertainty today. And our intro was like, okay, we weren't certain that was going to happen. So yeah, just plan for the unexpected in life. You know, everything will be fine once we do that. No. I have a lot of uncertainty around this weekend. We do not have any plans for July 4th at the time of this recording. It's prior to July 4th. So super, super fun to just not be certain of where the fun will be had. But to answer your question, I am home. I have been doing a lot of in-person consulting down in Southern Colorado, and my contract has shifted. So now I get to be home 3 weeks out of the month and there for a week out of every month, instead of going there for 3 or 4 days, back for 3 or 4 days, there for 3 or 4 days, back for 3 or 4 days. And it has been a game changer. I got to connect with near and dear friends that I've had for over 30 years. I ran with my women's running group this morning that I haven't done in 6 weeks. And we've been doing this running group for 15 years. So these women are my everything. Yeah. They are my chosen family. So I've been having a ball as usual. It's a choice. It totally is. I could be focused on other things, but I'm focusing on the good. Jen, what about you? What's the good? Tell us.
My goodness, we are getting some heat down here in Southern Oregon. So over the next several days, which July 4th and going into the weekend, it's going to get into the 110s. So 110, 111, 112. So my hubby and I are going to get out of here, and we've been prepping for the last few days to go do a little backpacking trip this coming weekend. So super excited about that. But that means tomorrow evening I ain't doing nothing actually for July 4th. So I'm actually pretty excited about it, with it being so hot. Yeah. I have to work tomorrow. It's not a holiday for me. So it's going to be a nice weekend coming up that we're going to get up way up high, because 112 down in the valley means you got to go up to 7,000, 8,000 feet. So that's where we're going. And it should be a lot of fun. I can't remember the lake that we're going to, but we're super excited about it. Well, let's kick it off.
As you know, you always inspire me. Yeah. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about uncertainty, right? So here we are, kind of having some little technical stuff coming up today. We're gonna just make it through this. And that's what uncertainty is all about, right? Like, life is going to hit us with things that are going to knock us off our rocker and are going to send us off track. And for humans, we want to feel safe, we want to feel comfortable, we want to feel secure, and anything that's going to set us off that, if we don't have a full plan and triplicate, that can be a really difficult thing for many of us to really wrap our heads around. And so the idea of like how we can get people out of our own way when it comes to certainty is what I'm so excited to talk about today. So why don't we kick it off? So question number one is, can you recall a specific time in your HR career when a failure to embrace uncertainty led to a negative outcome? And what did you learn from the experience?
We were giggling about that. The giggles are just going to keep coming today, I think, because to answer the question very directly, I can not only recall a specific time, I can recall 12 in the last 8 hours. Listener can relate to that. Here's what I mean. Not necessarily about me, but I'm a coach, right? I'm a consultant. My clients have been uncertain they're doing a good job, uncertain about probability of continued employment, uncertainty if they should stay in their current profession, uncertainty if they said or did the right thing, uncertain about their marriage, uncertain about their life's purpose, uncertain about who's running for president. I mean, just so much uncertainty. It plagues us every single day. And as a coach, I really coach people kind of out of their uncertainty, which is really fun. So I deal with uncertainty on the daily. And in my life, just reflecting back to not specifically answer the question, I think it was the uncertainty that I was trying to control for the first 25 years of my life in HR, my professional life in HR, that led to my general anxiety diagnosis. I truly, truly believe that. I was just so wanting to control everything and anything. So including, I've been flashing back the last couple of days because I do have a client who's really struggling if she should stay in her job. And what has, led to a negative outcome is that she's doing a lot of blaming and shaming of others. She is leading with victim mentality and she can't see it. She can't see it. So that uncertainty, she is spinning like I have never seen her spin before. And I'm a pretty damn good coach and I can't get her out of it. So I am here to say that none of us are perfect, and as a coach, I want to be certain that I'm able to do my job really well. And there's a lot of uncertainty even after the 9-to-5 realm, well into the HR coaching and consulting realm. So I think it exists. And one of my favorite quotes is really just very simply, the only thing, it's something like the only certainty is uncertainty. I'm sure I butchered it. But
I think that's good.
Yeah. Do you like how I'm like, it's my favorite one? And then I'm like, wait, I can't remember it.
What was that now?
What about you? I bet you have a really good specific example. I just know it. I can.
I love that whenever anybody says, hey, Jen, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And I bet your answer is going to be amazing. And that's always one of those things where I'm like,
Well, I didn't say amazing. I just said I know it's going to be specific.
No. I'm totally teasing you. It was one.
Well, I'm trying to now calm your nerves. And I'm obviously not doing a good job.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's so interesting because we have these different worlds where you are, in the consulting and, the coaching realm, and I'm still in the 9-to-5 in HR. And so the uncertainty where you say, like, count the number of times it came up for you today. I'm like, count the number of times it came up for me too. And anybody else in HR, right? The number of managers and employees and peers and everything who come in and are just constantly uncertain about everything, right? So so, it's so cool that it is really truly all the same. It's relatable in such a simple way, and yet, we make it complicated each day, all day, every day. And
We
so,
do.
yeah, so really, I think for me, I have an example where, I was going through a huge growth phase when I was working for Dutch Bros Coffee, and that was a time where they started to expand and create business partner roles. And
Right.
in the process of creating the business partner roles, I then really kind of set myself up as being like the conduit, between
Yes.
like the senior leaders who I had been working with really closely before we developed these BP roles, and then this new role. Well, I was going to be one of the BPs. So it's not, but in my head, there was so much fear around what I'll now be missing if I were to kind of share information, or if I were, so I ended up kind of creating a lot of like disconnection, a lot of like, yeah, it ended up really kind of being at my detriment in so many ways. But in looking back, I can see exactly why, the uncertainty of this new chartered territory that we were creating at that time, because it was all brand new. It was just too much for me. My
Yeah.
fear took over, my fear of
Uh,
rejection or acceptance or whatever,
yeah.
all of that I can remember kind of going through my head. But in looking back, it really started with that uncertainty and not having all the answers at the time, and then
Mhm.
taking it upon myself, thinking that that was going to be a way I could control and manipulate the circumstances. And so,
Boom.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was like such a good learning experience for me, because boy, I got my hand slapped on that one. And it was like a good awareness moment where it's like, oh, wait a second, what what is it you're really trying to accomplish here? And it was really a
Wow.
lot of like the ego and fear coming into it.
Yes. Absolutely. Wild.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I, I feel like there's going to be a lot of parallels for episode 22 and episode 21. Just so much discussion about fear and self
Yeah,
doubt and anxiety. I think it's just all intertwined. It's so interesting.
yeah, and it so is.
Mhm.
It so is. And it's just, kind of fun in a way as we start peeling the onion back and kind of
Right.
getting to the core of some of this stuff. So yeah.
100%.
Good stuff. Okay. Question 2. Why do you think so many leaders struggle with uncertainty?
I don't think a lot of leaders, whether they're in HR or not, understand and practice thought work, because working on our self-doubt, noticing when we're in fear, counteracting that, realizing that, okay, why am I so fearful of uncertainty? What if uncertainty is the path to freedom? What if embracing it, just a classic coaching reframe when it comes to uncertainty? And I truly think that if leaders practice thought work, I mean, it's just in my opinion, the precursor to emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional intelligence is situational awareness, self-awareness, everything having to do with emotion, but our thoughts inform our emotions. So what we actually need leaders to be doing to stop struggling with the uncertainty is to understand that we have control over our thoughts, which is kind of interesting because it gets back to control. That's a whole other topic, but that's my answer. What about you? Why do you think leaders struggle with uncertainty?
Oh, yeah. You nailed it so damn hard.
I try to nail things pretty
Just
damn hard, Jen.
nailed it. Yeah, I wrote down, the lack of awareness around what it is we're really holding on to. And so when it comes to a lack of certainty, and when we are in a place where we don't have all the answers, we don't have the knowing, that discomfort I have seen it over and over again. It's something that's subconscious for most of us. We're not
100%.
even, we're not paying attention to it. And so us in
100%.
HR and you as a coach and, all of that, we're able to like see that. And I think over time that awareness of being able to see that in others has helped me. It's helped me, in my growth, but it also is so challenging, like you said, with the one, person that you're working with who's spinning out, because you can see so clearly that grasping, right? Like we had a situation not too long ago where somebody was really struggling because they weren't copied on an email. And it was an email that ended up getting sent to the senior, several senior leaders. And oh my gosh, I've not seen anything quite like that in a long, long time. And it's something that is, just really, unfortunate, because in our brains, when that happens, we don't have the answers. We don't have the certainty. That narrative that this individual started to spin was wild. And they were certain of X and Y and Z and da, 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 da.
Certain. Yes.
Yeah. And so it just, it really comes down to having a better understanding of our human natural instinct to want to go to knowing, to going to certainty, to going to that place, and that it's more safe and comfortable. And this is subconscious and it's okay. And the more that we can just kind of be aware of it and kind of catch it and all of that is all that we need to do. I think the other thing that we feel like has to happen, and this can come later, is, we feel as though there needs to be like these grand things that change, that we have to put in place to make these huge changes right away when it comes to this stuff. And just a simple, like, kind of see that's come up for us is really can be powerful enough, but it's so tough. It's so tough for people because, they'll just kind of keep that spin going on and on and on. And with that individual, it just, the reframing, we just could not get there. So I totally hear you. I totally understand. And it's unfortunate. And again, just like last week, it comes down to fear. It comes down to like, what is it we're really so afraid of?
And it's different for everybody. I mean, we generalize by saying fear and self-doubt and anxiety, but those feelings and how we even define it, they're very personal. They're very, very personal, which is why I just struggle, kind of going off in left field here, but why I so struggle when lawyers advise us to treat like situations similarly.
Let's not go there because I will start dropping F-bombs.
I want to hear Jen Trum share an F-bomb on this podcast because I drop them.
That's a whole nother thing. That's like, trying to kind of move from black and white thinking to rational reason. Yeah. Anywho.
Once again, y'all are witnessing live how many podcast episodes there are, because Jen and I could talk about this stuff for the next 84 decades.
Job security. Okay, let's get to question 3. So what's the science behind our fear of uncertainty? Can you explain how our brains are wired to respond to it?
Part of me wants to dive into the amygdala and just start talking about that lizard brain, so to speak. So the oldest part of the brain that is just very primitive. So it's that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, that thing that we just can't control. And if you think about back in the Stone Ages, when we're in our caves and we're looking for that saber-toothed tiger, we hear of this analogy all the time. So it's just that fear is so deeply rooted in that specific part of the brain. But here's the other part, is that we do have a prefrontal cortex that can override that amygdala. But what happens is we don't even know to question thoughts and beliefs because they are so deeply rooted. We just believe them. We just believe that, for example, if our boss calls us into their office on a Friday with no topic and we think we're getting fired. I really have clients who are like, oh my gosh, I got called into my boss's office. I think I'm getting fired. That is, you're uncertain. you don't know what's going to happen. Instead of saying, well, I don't have the facts, I'm just going to go in. Some people start to spiral because they don't have that awareness. They are just operating from their amygdala because that's all they've ever known. And then they feel safe that way because it just makes them who they are, right? I think, I mean, the other way I almost want to answer this, there was a study done on human beings who were quite literally hooked up to machines, delivered electric shocks, and the people who were uncertain if they may be shocked experienced more pain than the people who knew they would be shocked. So that study is just so interesting to me because it's really our emotional feelings around that uncertainty that, I mean, quite literally can just be so painful and exacerbate our pain. It just blew my mind, ironically, just hearing about that study. I'm just curious how you're going to answer the science behind it and how our brains are wired. I can't wait to hear where you go with this.
Yeah, I love everything that you said about the amygdala, and it's, so amazing the more that I understand the science of our brains and why in the F here I am at now 50 years old, and I've really only been learning and understanding these things and understanding prefrontal cortex and all of it in the last few years.
No.
It is what it is, but it has been life-changing, game-changing, all of it. And so, I think that to what your point is, the more that I think we can understand the workings of how our brains work, it's almost like, we think about, when I've got a shoulder issue, a shoulder thing right now, and I've been going to physical therapy and, they're helping me kind of move it and learn how to move it. Why in the heck are we not doing more of that when it comes to understanding how our brains work and why certain reactions and certain things are kind of natural versus what we need to intentionally be able to put into place in order to kind of change some of this crap that we've been wired to do. So, that's, I think, what really came to me as I was thinking about this is like, how can we simplify this as easy as possible and say, hey, just so you are hardwired to be thinking, from a negative bias 90% of the time.
Yes.
Do you have a desire? Is there a desire to want to, make changes in that area? And if so, there's a whole lot of information. So where can we start? And so, that for me has been such an interesting shift in being like in the HR role that I am, in terms of individuals who have an interest or have any type of desire. And those are the ones that find themselves in a place of uncertainty more than anybody else, right? Like you can clearly see those patterns over and over again. And yet, I could have all the Jay Shetty books on the shelf and everything else on the shelf. They will never pick it up, right? They're going to go right back into the cycle over and over again, versus those who would just start asking the questions and having a place of the curiosity on what could, what really might be, something that they may be able to influence in ways that we weren't taught. We were not given the tools and resources. So yeah, I think, just dittoing everything you said, dittoing. Everything you said, and just expanding on it and saying, find your way on what that looks like, and really kind of pulling those threads, because for me, it's been a really fun ride.
Me too. I mean, my undergrad was in sociology. So I have been studying humans. We are social beings. So, I mean, I just even remember taking an ethnography course when I was a graduate level ethnography, when I was a sophomore. And I mean, I've just always been so interested in humans, very interested in psychology. But I think what's just blowing my mind are all the articles I'm reading on neuroscience. And I'm not a brainiac. I'm just not. My IQ is far from the rest of my family. But I read articles that are put in layman's terms and they blow my mind. It's fascinating. And I would go so far as to say, in HR, if our job is to, whether you have a title of people operations or it's more traditional HR, whatever your title is, I do think it's our responsibility as HR professionals to really start understanding human beings in a brand new way and not just repeating all the things we've been hearing in HR for, between the two of us, the 50 years combined that we've been in HR. And that's where things are going to start to shift in our industry. That's where we will start to get a seat at the table quicker than you can say dittoed. But most importantly, starting to impact people's lives and really helping our employees in a new way. And in a way that actually inspires and has a positive impact. It blows my mind.
I got chills. I got chills. Electrifying. No, thank you for that. That's, so beautiful. And I truly it solidifies when you say that, just solidifies my why so much around getting this type of message out there, because, there are times I think you and I have both felt that it's like, are we sounding like a broken record? I mean, we don't want to be naggy. And there's things about, this process of kind of having this platform, but at the same time, gosh, repetition is key, and being able to communicate in different ways and different narrative and story that can come into it, I think matters. So we need to keep talking about it, keep having episodes, keep, just having that continues to fuel these types of conversations. Right. So love it. All right.
Love
next question. In your opinion, what are the biggest benefits of getting comfortable with uncertainty for HR leaders?
Ironically, tomorrow's Independence Day. I think the biggest benefit is something that is also part of the human experience. We want to continue to learn. We want to continue to grow. And I truly think one of the biggest benefits of finally embracing uncertainty and, it's cool that, not cool, but it's okay that an employee just came in and filed a formal grievance. And I already know I'm going to be spending the next month and a half, leading this grievance process, leading the mediation, the facilitation, the investigation, all the things. And by the way, I also have an HRIS system that I'm supposed to be we can't do it all. Yeah. And I think for many of us, we try to control our work plans in HR. We pack it to the gills. And I believe when we get comfortable with uncertainty, quite literally knowing every single morning we wake up, I will face uncertainty today. And just to get comfortable with it, and not only get comfortable, this is a little wackadoodle, but to welcome it. It's almost like Peter Stoltz's work on adversity, as opposed to just being super rigid and want to be controlling and wanting to be so certain of our schedules and what we do with our time and what projects we're working on in HR, et cetera, et cetera. What if we quite literally approach the day with, come what may, let's do it. Let's welcome the uncertainty. I think that retraction of that resistance, it provides freedom. We're just free from all of those thoughts that bog us down. The thoughts of, oh my God, I'm going to be behind. Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to deliver on everything I'm supposed to do. Oh my God, I'm going to have to stay late. I mean, all the things that I just hear my clients repeat over and over and over again. And that's what I think. Kind of an interesting answer, but I really believe definitely one of the biggest benefits. It's just oh, I can't control everything. Life is all uncertain. Let's go. I'm going to welcome it.
And
I
it's
don't
so
know.
beautiful.
What do you think?
I think it's so beautiful because what I hear you saying is like really giving ourselves permission, like, you know, having that grace with ourselves around it just is, you know. And there's so often when, you know, things, the unpredictable, right, gets then buried on us. We weren't expecting to have to pick the kiddos up, or we weren't expecting these different things. And so now there's like all of this extra weight, you know. There might be the, you know, the guilt of forgetting, you know, this or that. And what I've really, yeah, I resonate so much with that, because it's like really being able to kind of come to a place where you're like, it just is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show up, and I'm gonna do my best with what I have right in front of me. And everything else is kind of out of the out of control, out of my control. And I think it's so hard. It's just so hard for us to do that. And yet, you know, the power that comes of it, from being able to kind of have that self grace or self permission to just allow that, and what that does of
Oh,
giving, you know, giving that permission potentially to other people. And really what was interesting is that was what my answer was the what I am finding so much, especially over this last year, is the relationships that I have are so much more deeper and impactful when there's transparency around the uncertainty. And I am like beyond grateful to like have that, you know, awareness now of like, you know what, you know what, you could potentially be missing out. And it has to be the right environment, right? Because I think that's a fear for so many people. If I am going to kind of share my truth, sometimes if we're really going to be honest about what we're uncertain about, am I going to be judged? Am I going to be rejected? Am I going to be accepted? Right. And so as all of these, I think, build up within us, we then just shut down, or, you know, we don't speak our truth. So yeah, I think the relationship potential of just like, here it is. Here it is. This is the vomit of what it is. But yet, you know, it's not for you to own. It's not for him to own. It's not for anyone else to own. I still own my shit. You know, I still
yeah.
own my stuff, but yet I am going to be truthful about that. And that's been such a game changer in like so many ways. And so to build on what you said was like so fun, because I'm like, yes, and
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Yes, and you've been the master of that in most of our episodes, if not all. And certainly today, I'm like, oh, she is yes anding. That is one of the best books I've ever read. And you have mastered the yes and.
oh, that
Truly.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, here we're wrapping up the last couple questions. So we've got
Okay.
question 5. Can you share some practical strategies that HR professionals or anyone can use to cultivate a mindset that embraces uncertainty?
Oh my gosh, why am I laughing? Now I'm catching myself laughing. It's so funny. Do I do that a lot? I'm so uncertain if I laugh a lot. That's so interesting. I started giggling because I flashed back to Carol Dweck's work on a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So cultivating a mindset that embraces uncertainty, that's it right there. It's developing that growth mindset that things will change, things can change. And so that's one practical strategy. Pick up Carol's book, read it. And if you find that you are very stuck in that fixed mindset, it's okay. There's really detailed strategies in that book of how you can develop and hone a growth mindset. And I don't know why these books are coming to, I don't know why I'm going the book route tonight, but it is by David Emerald, I believe. And the book is called The Power of TED. And I actually recommend this book to most of my clients because it really takes you out of it's mostly about victim mentality, but I do find there are a lot of parallels with my clients who really swirl and start to downward spiral because of the uncertainty. And oftentimes, we're a victim. It's the opposite door. So I think that's another book that actually absolutely helps you shift out of that victim mentality, that focus on uncertainty and that negativity that surrounds it versus, well, what can you control? Can you actually control your mind about your view of uncertainty? And does that even shift you out of, victim mentality into victor mentality? So that's another one. And I would say the last one is much practical and can be, these books really don't take that long to read. But I think present tense empowered sentence practice. They can't be these far off, far-fetched things, not really affirmations. While I like affirmations, a lot of my clients struggle with them because they feel as though, well, that's just not true for me. So my question is always, okay, what is true for you? I am, if you are experiencing, let's say, uncertainty in your, let's say with a family member, and you are uncertain of their behavior, you're uncertain of how they're going to respond when you bring up something that you need to bring up to respect yourself. Let's say you need to have a conversation. And you don't know how it's going to go, right? There's the uncertainty component. You don't know how they're going to respond. You hope you are not going to go into fight or flight. I think the way to really focus on, kind of switching your brain about that uncertainty is, well, I am, like, what can you control? I am loving. I am compassionate. I am, and not I'm going to be, I am. Even if the conversation is not happening. I mean, really start embracing those qualities and those skills and those characteristics and those adjectives that you really want, because that is where your power does lie 100% of the time. Decide how you want to show up.
I love it.
Oh my gosh.
Love it.
Talked a lot.
No, it's so good. And you mentioned a few books, so we'll make sure to put it in the show notes.
I love that.
And we'll
Awesome.
Get the information for those when we post a podcast.
I love it. Yeah, where did your brain go with this one?
I came up with, like, what's interesting is I loved where you were going so much. And for me, one of the things that most came up was, a sense of curiosity without judgment. And so there's so many different books and studies and everything around developing habits, and especially over the last 5-10 years, right? The different power of habit and all of those. But the habit of being able to recognize where you are, where you are stuck, and being able to kind of do the work that you talked about earlier, the thought work. And it's so interesting because I've had, and I know you have too, so many conversations with people just about how you can slice and dice what you call it or what exactly the steps are, right? And I don't care. That part doesn't matter. Really, the idea is we are constantly in thinking mode without awareness to our thinking. And there was just a podcast with Jay Shetty and Rob Dial, who I'm not super familiar with him, but he has the Mindset Mentor podcast, and he's had it for years and years and years. And it was such a good episode. And it really talked about the awareness being such a key, and then the ability for us to question and start asking the questions around what is actually creating the unsettlement or the discomfort when it comes to uncertainty. Because as soon as we can start becoming more curious and not from a, judge or fix right away mentality, we can start to then have a detached awareness around how we actually want to be intentional with our circumstances. And that's where so many people miss it, because we're afraid to actually address whatever needs to be addressed. So It's like so fascinating to me. And so really, I think the habit of like just starting to create the process of becoming aware of what's going on, right? If I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I'm feeling uncertain, if I find myself continually having doubts and worries about, any meeting I have with my boss that, is going to get me into a tizzy because I'm constantly worried I might get fired, that's worth exploring.
That is worth exploring.
That's worth exploring. So it's really, I think, having that courage within ourselves to say, hey, I need to spend the time to kind of understand this more, because our monkey brains, our lizard brains are going to cause us to immediately make up the worst, or definitely not allow us to actually see anything beyond that unless we're intentional. Like, it's just the way that the human brain works. And so, yeah, how to actually fit that into our lives, it's like, that is up to us, right? I think you and I can be here in any way to help support people find their own way, but it's really, that is the key of unlocking our own internal universe.
It's so funny because HR Empower Hour is we next week is our 40th consecutive week.
That's awesome.
Which is so fun. And I promise you, at least once in every single workshop, I bring up the skill of curiosity. I could not agree with you more. And I've gone so far as to say curiosity could heal the world.
Oh my gosh. I could, non-judgmental curiosity could heal the world.
Truly.
Yeah. Mic drop. Oh my gosh.
I cannot agree more with that skill. That skill development, overriding that judgment. Yeah. All day long.
Yeah. Rob Dial, are you familiar with Rob Dial?
I've heard of his name. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was talking about an example where he was at a grocery store and he all of a sudden noticed there was somebody in line in front of him who had a really old school, like, phone tech setup, right? And they were just, they were kind of discombobulated and all of that. And so he noticed immediately, he went to judgment immediately, right? Like, he had kind of this thought of whatever came up. And he's like, here's the thing, our brains are going to do that. And it's what we do with that second thought that matters more than anything.
Yes.
And then it's the habit of catching that first thought and then recognizing that's not really something I want to resonate with, and then being intentional about choosing differently. And that's where so many people struggle. And how we can kind of move people to say, it's okay. It's okay that we had that first thought, right? There's so many people too. There's this shame around, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. I had this terrible thought about this gentleman at the store. And then we kind of find ourselves at a wall at that point. We don't end up moving on and saying, well, actually, is that like true for me? Does that resonate with the me that I want to be? And if not, then do something about it. Right. And so it's really, really, I think, where you and I think have that the fun with our conversations, because we can help recognize it's within us, and we just have to be conscious enough to like turn that dial. Oh, Rob Dial.
Rob Dial. We're gonna move that dial, Rob Dial. Yes.
Oh man. All right.
That is a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, last question. Looking back at your career, is there any advice you'd give to your younger self about dealing with uncertainty?
Oh, geez. I developed, quick story. I went into HR at 21. By 25, I had hemorrhoids. My doctor said I was the youngest person they'd ever seen with internal hemorrhoids. I know that's gross, probably TMI, but my point is this. Because I wanted to control everything. I was so afraid of death so afraid of death, of me dying, of my parents dying, of everybody. Like, I was so worried that I wasn't doing a good job. My narrative on repeat is you are not smart. That of course led to, my gosh, I could get fired at any moment. What if I make a mistake? What if there's a typo in that email? What will happen? So all of that uncertainty. So that led to me, I think I was like early 40s, where I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. I mean, a literal disorder, because I was anxious all the time. And it truly, I mean, I was just constantly in victim mentality and woe is me, and things are happening to me, not for me. And I would tell myself, well, first of all, sort of a catch-22, because I really believe I had to go through all of that to get where I am today. And I am happy. I love work. I love life. I love everything. I just have a good time all the time. And I know that's like super hard to believe. And I thought, well, it would have been for me if I had told myself, my 43-year-old self, you're going to be just happy all the time and light. You're going to ditch the anxiety. You're going to embrace uncertainty. You're just going to say, come what may, it's all good. I would never have believed it. So I think my answer has to be understanding the power of thought work. It's not psychology. It is just really, as Jen, you've just so articulated it amazingly about, and going back to is it John Dial? John?
Oh, Rob Dial.
Rob Dial. The second thought. The second thought is everything. Be okay with your amygdala firing and your first thought is super judgmental. Totally cool. What you do next, the thought you choose next, is everything. So if you're anything like me and it's, oh my God, here comes my performance review. I have no idea what's going to happen. What if I get really low marks and I'm put on a PIP and there's very few HR positions where I live? Just all of that uncertainty and just drowning in it. Like, okay, catch those thoughts and then say, where are all the facts in that? Is that your mind? Is that mind drama? Or is that fact? Is any of that fact? Do you know what rating you got? No? Okay. So just be cool with the uncertainty for now. The light will be shed at some point, and it's okay. It's okay. I don't know. Thought work just changed my life. It sounds so cheesy, but it's just so true.
Yeah, I've got tears just because it really is so powerful to think of how much our things could have been different had we had this information when we did start out in our HR careers. But for all the wisdom that we've gained through making the mistakes and the stumbles that we've had.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautifully said.
Oh,
so
you.
well said. Yeah,
about you. Yeah, reflection of the career, Jen.
Yeah, it's been such a shit show. It's been such I have fumbled and stumbled and tumbled so many times, and it's hysterical, and in terms of like how I related to uncertainty, I'm pretty grateful that in my HR career, we've talked about it on the podcast about how many jobs I've had, right? Like I have really kind of embraced that uncertainty at the professional level for a long time. And it's given me a gift in that way, but it's still only been within the last couple of years that I've embraced uncertainty in the other areas of my life, which is so interesting. Cause I was just having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. about everybody, I think, has certain areas of their lives that they've been more brave. And everybody can kind of recognize the areas of our lives that we've been a little more brave and those areas that we've held back more. And so for me, it's really fascinating that it's the professional area, because here I am with this platform to be able to say, hey, y'all, what might look like, this brave person out there professionally doing all these things, there's shit show going on. And, so it's like, it's really interesting. And I think it really comes down to like having that super clear awareness on, what it really is that we're, trying to hold on to or, whatever. But I think for me, it just has kind of been such a good, eye-opening thing for me to recognize how much over my career and just through my life, really, I stood so much in my own way. And I think, now being able to kind of have compassion for that and recognize, regardless of the reason, that there's really, I think, this growth, I think, that happens as we learn how to push through those barriers. And I think a lot of that does come down to identifying what those are and what matters, and identifying our values. And so, that was one thing I think we've talked about in the past, about like, when you really are clear about who you are and what matters, then you can start filtering through, the things that are holding you back, and then what really is causing you not to actually move in those directions. And those are always fascinating, really fascinating ways to kind of uncover what's actually keeping us stuck and held back. So
It's, I don't know, maybe I'm a total weirdo, but for me, it's fun. It's not even type 2 fun. I enjoy my brain now. I enjoy my thoughts now. I enjoy catching them. I enjoy the joy and the levity. And I never thought I'd say that, because I did not like my brain. I did not like my thoughts. I did for so long.
And I bet deep, deep, deep down, you didn't love yourself
Bingo.
as much as you do now.
Yeah.
Right. And that sense of really, knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing who you are, and being grounded in that. And that, I think, the thought work, y'all, when we talk about this work of understanding ourselves better, that's where it's at. Like it's not going to be joy and sunshine and rainbows every day.
No.
I think, the reality is, there are going to be bumps in the road, but what you speak to is like what is possible. And it does, it does require something different out of you, out of most of us. And yet, you and I and those who also have kind of gone down this journey can just, repeat how worth it is, and how it's one of those sayings that you never really understand until you can be kind of here in this place and go, oh, I see now. Sometimes they kind of sneak up on you, right? Because sometimes the thought work doesn't feel like it's doing all that much, the meditation or whatever it is, right? We're like, am I making progress? Like I just had that conversation with someone who just was so frustrated because they felt like they'd made so much progress, and then life happened, and now they're feeling as though they haven't. And then the reality is, the things that they were saying, they weren't really like aware of themselves. But as we were talking about it, we were having coffee and we were talking, and I was like, I just want to bring you to your attention. The way that you're speaking about this right now is so much more empowering. And in just bringing her awareness to like how she was viewing the circumstances, because they suck. I mean, it was no way around it. It wasn't a great situation. But the fact that she now is able to kind of detach herself from like this emotional hold and not attach herself so much to that certainty, right, of like where this is going and the outcome. it brought like this new sense of peace. So it was still not a great situation. There's still a road ahead of it. It's, all of that. But yet for her to be able to kind of recognize that she now has these different tools, she's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. She's safe. And so that's a pretty cool thing too. And, we, get to be able to be a part of that and helping others to see themselves in a new way that they may not have known it was possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm just flashing back to a client who lost her ex-husband. So my coaching program is 12 weeks of one-on-one and then a year of group and all access to my app, all the things. But in the 12 weeks we were doing one-on-one coaching, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and lost her ex-husband to alcoholism.
Oh, wow.
And when you said peace, that your client's experiencing peace, that we always do vision work and get really clear on what our vision is for our lives. And my client wanted peace. And can you imagine the thought work she had to do while going through breast cancer, through that uncertainty? And then they also had a young daughter. She has primary custody. So just all of that uncertainty, especially while her ex-husband was in the hospital for quite some time and it was uncertain if he was going to make it or not. And she talk about an example of what's possible. She is in remission. She is healthy. She is thriving. Her daughter is thriving. And she found her peace. She really found her peace amongst all that uncertainty. So I just loved your example. And it just literally brought that client. I mean, it's been a couple of years and it brought her back to the forefront of my mind. And it is just truly amazing what can happen when we shift our relationship with the uncertainty.
Yeah, it reminds me of the movie Frozen, the song "Let It Go," of that letting go of all of it, and being able to just be at peace with what is, as tragic and as difficult as it might be. And oh my gosh, thank you for that. That's it's such a good reminder of how these little shifts in our perception can happen at any time.
Yeah.
And it really is just such a powerful reminder. So, well, with that, we'll go ahead.
Let's eat some hot dogs.
On that high note. All right.
Peace and freedom. Yes. That is a high note. Yes.
100%. And, again, in terms of, this podcast, we are so, so grateful for the support, the growth. I mean, this darn thing has been the little engine that could, and we just want to thank everyone out there who listens or watches. And if you haven't downloaded, please download us, please like us, please rate us, review us, whatever. It definitely gets us more likes, more visitors, more exposure. So that is super important for us. And with that, Kathy, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
I just want to say happy 4th. Even if you're, listening months later, happy 4th, your next 4th. Yeah, Jen, have a great 4th. I can't wait to hear about your adventure this weekend. I hope you have a great day at work tomorrow. Not everybody is off on the 4th. Jen is one of those who's working. So shout out to all the people holding down the fort in HR on the 4th. You guys are amazing.
But I will sneak away for a little bit to go see the City of Ashland parade here in little Ashland, Oregon. So don't worry. It's not going to be all work. There'll be some play. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us as always. And every day, make sure is a great day to thrive and shine in HR. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.